Well, first, I'd like to thank you all for coming to this webinar. We're going to be talking about the first steps for starting your small business. Since we have a small group today, feel free to pop in, unmute yourself, and ask questions as they come up. I'll also stop a few times during the presentation. And of course, after the presentation, we'll have some time for questions and answers as well. So we are Maryland Capital Enterprises. And I am Nick Rudolph. It's easy to remember my name, St. Nick Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and I'm the Baltimore Regional Director. And there's my email address, nrudolph@marylandcapital.org. It'll pop up a few more times through the presentation. But a little bit about who we are. We are what's known as a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution. And what that means is that we're sort of, folks think of us sort of like a nonprofit bank. So we're able to give loans for small businesses that a bank might not be able to, whether it's for being a startup, maybe there's some credit issues in the past, might be a business that the banks just don't understand. That's why we're here. And when we started in 1998, we were doing $500 loans for small businesses on the three counties of the Lower Eastern Shore. We grew, we got a little bit bigger. We developed a relationship with the SBA and became an SBA lender. We're now able to do much bigger loans than that. And then in 2012, we hopped over the bridge to the Western Shore and opened up this Baltimore office. I've been with the office since 2015. Then in 2020, we became a women's business center, both in Salisbury and in Baltimore. And what that means is that we have some enhanced services for women and minority-owned businesses. And you can find out more about everything at marylandcapital.org or Women's Business Center at marylandcapitalenterprises.org. That's also, we'll be able to find our client intake forms and other things to be able to apply for loans if that's something that you're interested in. What we also offer are things like this. We call it technical assistance, and that's free things available to any business owners in our service area. Things like webinars, one-on-one counseling to help you develop your business plan or your cash flows. We can talk to you about marketing, general business finance, really any small business topic. We can have a one-on-one with you for free, and that's whether or not you apply for the loan. But a lot of folks do want to talk to us about the lending. So we are an SBA intermediary lender. The SBA doesn't actually give out loans unless it's an emergency, like the PPP or the EIDL funds during the pandemic. What they do is they back loans. So they said, hey, MCE, we trust you enough that if you approve a loan and it goes bad, we'll give you a certain percentage of that back, which makes it easier to do these loans for folks who might not be bankable. We do get funds from the federal government, but we also get state funds from DHCD, from the Department of Commerce, and those are known as the VLT funds or the Video Lottery Terminal funds. And then we also raise money on our own. So basically, when you apply for a loan, if you're approved, we're going to get you into the pot of money that makes the most sense for you. Again, we offer all that free training and free counseling on whether or not you apply for the loans. So now we're going to get into the first steps for starting your small business. As I said, we're going to do this conversationally and try to have a little bit of fun with it. So the first thing we want to talk about is before you start your business, and don't worry if you've already started it, this is something that you can continue to build on while you're growing your business. But when you're starting a business, it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of planning, which is sometimes difficult for a lot of folks. And it's going to take creativity in designing the business and creativity in dealing with things as they pop up, because no matter how much you prepare, something that you didn't prepare for will pop up. So I like to think about a business like I think about a building in downtown Baltimore. So if you see an empty lot and it's got a sign on the fence that says this beautiful skyscraper is coming up and there's going to be apartments and offices and restaurants and retail and all that good stuff. And then 18 months later, it still looks exactly the same. Then the work starts, and 6 months later, the business is open, the building is open, and the businesses are thriving. There's people living in it. Well, those 18 months, what they were doing is they were building the foundation for their small business, and that's exactly what we're doing here. Is we're helping you build that strong foundation. That's where you do your planning. That's where you put all of your business plan together, your cash flow projections. You talk to people about figuring out who your accountant is going to be, or a lawyer who might be able to help you out. As you're building that foundation, the more time you spend on that, the easier and quicker it's going to be able to grow your successful business. And so that's sort of what we want to talk a little bit about today. So we skipped one. So why do people start businesses? Well, number one, Folks want to make money, right? Businesses hopefully will make money. Number two, you're doing something that you're good at or you're passionate about, or even if you're just interested in it, it helps keep you, engaged in your work. It's a way to turn your hobby into a way to make some money. You do get to be your own boss, but the reality is you have a lot of bosses. Once your business is up and running and smoothly, you'll have some flexible work hours. And sometimes you're just doing it because you're bored of what you're doing and you want to start a new career. Um, but when you're thinking about starting a business, this is what I like to call the scary slide. A number of businesses do fail in their first 2, 5, and 10 years. But that doesn't mean that it's as risky as it looks. There's folks out there who will start a business, get it running, and then decide they want to do something else after 2 years, close it, and start something anew. Chefs do that all the time. Somebody's got, a fancy Chinese restaurant, and, after 5 years, they decide they want to go into Spanish tapas. And so they close the Chinese restaurant and they open a tapas restaurant. But still, it is a risk. And no matter how you set up your business, you are taking personal risk when you are starting your business. So you want to ask yourself some questions before starting your business. And you don't have to write a report on all of this, but this is stuff you want to have in your head. So the first thing you want to think about is, why are you starting the business? Is this something that you have the bandwidth and the passion and the ability to concentrate on? Then you want to think about the type of business you want to do. Are you selling something? Are you selling a service? Are you consulting? How is that going to work? And who is my customer? Are you dealing with the public generally? Are you a government contractor? Are you a business to business type business? So you want to think about who is going to be giving you that money that you're going to be living off of. Same thing, thinking about the products and services. Just really what you want to do is understand what's going on in your market and understand that there's room for you. So you want to make sure you're opening up your business in a place where it needs to be. You also want to think, is this a one-person shop? Or am I going to need to hire employees? And if I do, are they going to be W-9 actual employees that I'm giving benefits to and all of that stuff? Or are they 1099 contractors? You also want to think about the type of supplies you need. Unless you're a consultant, you're probably going to need some supplies coming in. And then you need to think about how much money you need to get started. Starting undercapitalized is a big reason why businesses don't succeed. And so we want to help you make sure that you've got everything that you need to succeed. So moving on, getting that funding, will you need a loan and can you get it? So we're going to talk a little bit later on about what it takes to get a loan. But if you know you need that, you can start preparing for that early. You can develop that relationship with the bank before you need to make the ask. You can find out what they need in order to get a yes so that you can put all that together. Then you want to think about, once you've got your money, how long is it going to take for you to actually start making money? How long is it going to take for you to open? If you are building a child daycare center and you need to rehab a home and put in a commercial kitchen and sprinklers and all of that stuff, you're probably not opening for 3 or 4 months after you get that loan. How are you going to make those loan payments? How are you going to keep yourself above water while you're not making any income? You also want to think about your competition. And I know a lot of us have business ideas that we think are completely unique, but there are competitions and competitors for everyone. And what you really want to think about is, where are these folks in my market? What are they doing well? I mean, these folks are around, they're succeeding for a reason. And then how are you going to compete against them? What is your special sauce? What do you have that they don't have? Is it pricing? Is it customer service? Is it a service that you offer that they don't? There's lots of different ways that you can figure that out, but you really want to think about how you're going to exist with your competition. Then you want to think about the setup of the business. LLC gives you a little bit less personal risk, but has a lot heavier reporting requirements. So, a one-on-one talk can figure out what makes most sense for your business. Then you want to make sure you know about your taxes and your insurance and that you're making those payments on time, because you want to be insured and you want to be in good standing with the state. Then you want to figure, are you managing your business or are you paying somebody else to do it? And if you're doing it, how are you going to do it? And then lastly, how are you going to get the word out? If you build it, they will come is not going to work. So how are you going to market? Is it going to be traditional? Is it going to be social media? Or are you marketing to places like hospitals because you've got an assisted living facility and you want to get their patients into your place? So marketing can mean a bunch of different things, and we'll go into some more detail about that later. So there are the 10 steps to start a business. These are them, but they're not listed in order of importance and really not even listed in order that you need to do them. Whatever makes the most sense for you, you just need to make sure that you've got all of this. So number one, getting assistance and training. I'm going to say this a couple times during the presentation, but there is nowhere in the country with more free business assistance than this Maryland area. So you should take advantage of that. Talk to us, ask us all of our questions. Talk to your local small business development center, ask them the same questions. Talk to your bank. There's lots and lots of folks you can talk to. We all have different experiences, so we'll all be able to teach you different things and then figure out, who you're most comfortable with and work with those folks. You're going to need a business plan, and we're going to go into some detail about what needs to be in that if you're looking for a loan. You need, if you're going to have employees, to understand what your responsibilities are as an employer. What kind of insurances do you need to have? What are your payroll costs going to be? Then you want to choose your business location. Are you brick and mortar? Are you working from home? Or are you, have a bunch of stuff in storage somewhere? How are you going to do business and where are you going to do business? Again, determining the legal structure. Then you need to register your business. So you need to go to IRS and get your EIN number and then go to the Maryland state page and set up your business, as an LLC or an S corp. You also want to think about what you're going to name your business. Are you going to be a serial entrepreneur? If you are, you might want to do something like, Nick Rudolph LLC, and then, I've got Nick's Dill Pickles as a DBA under it, because in the future I might want to make a Nick's Salsa brand or something like that. So you want to think about how you want to name your business, and you are allowed to change the name of your business, as you go along. You want to register, make sure you're paying your state and local taxes. There are quarterly things that you need to fill out for that to stay in good standing. Get any type of license or permits you need in your specific area. Like if you're a retail, you're going to have to get the fire department. If you're a restaurant, you need to get the health department additionally. Then you want to talk about financing your business. Do you got a bunch of money in the bank, or are you going to need to get money somewhere else? And then develop that marketing plan. How are you going to get the word out? So the first thing you want to understand is your market. And the reason you want to do that is because it helps you understand your risk and if it's a comfortable amount of risk for you. You also then want to determine that there is room for you in the marketplace. And the way you do that is by doing research about your industry. And it's going to help you find the current and upcoming problems. It's going to let you know about maybe growth that's coming in the future, some sales opportunities in the future. And also you want to be able to cite this data in your business plan. And the way to look for that data is pretty simple. Do an internet search. Look for industry publications and government websites. Join your Chamber of Commerce, talk to them, and you can find out information about, how much is your industry growing wholly, internationally or nationally, and how much is it growing locally, so you can prove that you've got space for you in the market. You also want to think not just locally, but also regionally and nationally about who your competition is. Looks like we got something in the chat. Oh, yes. For folks who weren't here at the very beginning, we will be able to send you the slides. All righty. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of starting a business? Because there are a few, it's going to take a lot of work, but you get to be your own boss. You really can't be fired unless your business isn't successful. The more you work, hopefully the more money you're going to make. You're doing something you're passionate about. And then the other thing that I think is really important, and sort of why organizations like us exist, is by you starting a small business, you have the potential to help other folks get jobs. And so you're being able to help your whole community. We're building communities through small business. Now, again, you're going to work those long hours. There's always risk no matter what. You're probably not going to get paid for the first year, maybe two, out of your business. So can you keep another job? You may need additional training or certification. You're probably not taking a vacation in the first 2 or 3 years. And there's not going to be a lot of self-time. You want to put some in your schedule to make sure that you're handling the stress of starting a business, but there's not going to be a ton of it. And as I said before, you're going to have a lot of bosses. Every customer is a boss. Every employee is a boss. So you want to make sure that you're keeping those folks happy so that your business can be successful. Now, a lot of folks want to talk to us about business grants, and unfortunately, there are not a lot of small business grants. If you have a retail establishment in a historic commercial district, your county or your city may have what's called facade improvement grants, where they'll pay a percentage of your signage, your awning, your ADA accessibility, your outside security camera and lighting, things like that. But if you're in one of these businesses, there are occasionally grants. We don't have any right now. What I would recommend is talking to the state agency that oversees whatever you do. So if you're in healthcare, the Department of Health, if you're in housing, DHCD, things like that. And they may have some grants that are available, but I wouldn't count on grant financing to start your business. So what do you need to be successful in a small business? What are the keys to success? And there are a lot of them. But what you really want to think about is, do you have the experience necessary in your industry? And if you don't, do you have a mentor or a way to get that experience as you're growing your business? Number two, do you have any business management experience? And it doesn't need to be in your industry. I managed a Taco Bell through college. I was managing employees. I was doing ordering. I was doing all of that stuff. So even though my business may be in something that has nothing to do with fast food, that experience is going to matter. You also want to be able to recognize and improvise to solve problems. So we're going to plan, and on the first day, something is going to break that we didn't plan for. So do you have the skills to think on your feet? A lot of small business owners, especially in the consulting or law fields, things like that, take comedy improv classes just to work that muscle to get their brain thinking about, how can I think on my feet to get ideas generating, how to yes and things like that. And then if you don't have the school skills, as I said, can you get that education? Can you find a mentor? So before we go into the checklist, are there any questions to start? Okay, we'll just move forward then. So, Marlene, go ahead.
Hiya, thank you so much for the session today. Super quick question about asking questions. Will there be time at the end, or should we just interject whenever we have a question?
So we're going to do both. We don't have a lot of people here today, so just feel free to unmute yourself and just interrupt me, but we will be leaving some time at the end as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, because sometimes it just makes more sense to ask while the slide's on the screen,
Right.
So,
cheers. All right.
Awesome. So how are you going to start your small business? Well, number one, you need to check your legal requirements, right? You can't open your business unless you've got all your permits and your licenses. So you want to figure that out, because if you open a business where that business type is not allowed, you're going to lose all of that investment and all of that time and have to move it somewhere else. You are then going to want to talk about your credit. Personal credit is needed to start a business. We only look at personal credit. So you want to think about, have I been making all of my payments? Do I have, nothing past due? Those are the things that are going to be helpful for getting you that loan. And the reason why I skipped the other two is because we're going to talk about them next in your bail team. So your bail team is something that you want to have as you're starting your small business. So the B is for banker. So you want to develop that relationship before you even start your business. You want to go to your local branch and say, hey, I've got an account here and I'm thinking about starting a small business. Do you have a business banker? They will then meet with you. You can say I'm in the planning phase. In about 6 months or so, I think I'm going to be looking for a loan. These are the issues with my credit. This is the type of collateral that I have. What can I do to make it easier to get a loan? There's a couple reasons why you're going to do that. Number one, informationally, it's going to be nice to have that information. And number two, you are developing that relationship. You keep checking in on that banker, asking them questions, letting them know about progress, and they're going to get to know you. And then when you apply for that loan, they're going to be fighting for you harder because they actually care about you. So you really want to develop that as a relationship. And that's the only one that you need to have a professional relationship with it as you're starting your business. But you also want to think, oh, I see somebody on an iPhone with a question. So go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Kiana Murphy. I had a quick question,
Sure.
especially when it comes to the finances and getting your loans and building relationships with bankers. My question is, with being a business and you're looking for seed money, your startup funding, how difficult is it to get funding if you aren't already operating as a business?
Sure. So a lot of banks will not do loans for businesses that have not been in operation for 2 years. And that's another reason why we exist. We can fund pre-startup. And so what we're looking for is a realistic cash flow, a really good idea, and proof that you can do that work. If you've got that and you have decent credit, there's a very good chance you're going to be getting that loan. We're not you apply and then we just send that over to the committee that makes a decision. We will then help you edit your documents to tailor it specifically for the folks who make the decisions. We'll let you know, things that you might want to highlight or things that you might want to take out. And we'll also let you know if we think that this just isn't the right time and, you can take these steps and then in a few months you're ready to apply. But we do mostly startups, I would say. Alrighty, so the next people you need is accountant. That doesn't mean you need to have them on retainer, but get to know your local accountants. Get to know who's going to be able to help you file your taxes, help make sure that you're not missing any deadlines. This is a good investment for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's just going to keep a good eye on your money. As you start a business, you're going to be in the weeds, and a very easy thing to ignore are the books. These folks are going to be helping you with that. Also, when you miss deadlines, you are no longer in good standing with the state, which makes you ineligible for a lot of the services that nonprofits like us do. And then also, if you've got an accountant doing your taxes, it gives you some protection against an audit. Same thing with insurance. Every small business needs insurance. It doesn't matter who you are. The most basic policies are like $600 to $1,000 a year. But if you start adding in food, kids, transportation, medical stuff, anything like that, you are going to be raising that significantly. And then we've got the lawyer. Again, don't need to be on retainer, but get to know your local lawyers, get to know who can help you out. Try to become a little friendly with them and let you know who they are so that when you need them, they know who you all are already, so you're not paying for extra hours there. And then also, I always recommend saving at least $50 a month in a reserve in case you do need to hire a lawyer. You can get a couple of hours to start off. Alrighty, so now we're going to go into what you need to do to develop the business plan to start your business. And so the rest of this presentation, until we start talking about how to apply for a loan, is about the documents that you're building to apply for a loan or to build a plan to start your business. So the business plan is a blueprint for your business. So what that means is this is what you're going to use to build that structure that is your business. So you want to spend a lot of time on it and make sure that it's realistic. You also want to consider your audience. If you're applying for a grant, you may want to focus on how you're hiring from the community, how you're giving back, different things like that. If you're applying for a loan from a bank, that stuff is nice, but the only thing they really care about is, are you going to be able to pay back that loan? And so you might want to highlight different things, move things up and down based on who's reading your business plan, just like a resume. If you're applying for a job in one industry, your resume is going to look different than if you're applying for a different but similar industry. All right, so now we're going to go into the 4 parts of the business plan. We do have a business plan template. It's an outline made up of questions that we have heard decision makers ask, and that will be available to be emailed to you. You can either contact me, but I think that Bunky does send out all of that to everybody. So it's important to know we break our business plans down into 4 sections. The thing is, you know how to tell your story better than we do. You know your business better than we do. So if it makes more sense to not have it in this format, that's absolutely fine, as long as you've got all of this information and it's easy to sort of figure out where that is in the business plan. So the first thing is your executive summary, which is often the last thing that you write because it will pull information from the rest of the business plan. But what you want to do is think of it as your elevator speech. It's what's going to get folks interested to read the rest of the plan. So the first thing I always recommend is a sentence setting up the reader so they know who you are and what you want from them. So in my fictional business, Nick's Dill Pickles, I would say Nick's Dill Pickles LLC is a wholesale pickle business operating out of Baltimore, Maryland, and owned by Nick Rudolph. We are seeking a loan of $10,000 to buy our initial pickling equipment. If those are your first 2 sentences, they know who you are and what you're looking for, and that's going to frame the way that they're looking at the rest of the business plan. Then you want to talk about what got you into this business. Why are you passionate about whatever you're doing? Did you see, folks, your grandparents not treated well in assisted living facilities, and you decided you wanted to offer a better experience to the next generation that's aging? Talk about that. You also want to talk about your experience in the industry, and that type of important information. And then at the end, make the ask again. but with a little more detail. What are you going to be purchasing with that money? Business plans do not need to be long. We don't want to read a 100-page business plan. You should be able to get it, in less than 10 pages, unless there's a whole lot of pictures. So the executive summary is usually just a page, page and a half, maybe 2 pages. The next section is your marketing plan. This is going to be the biggest part of your business plan. It's way more than just how you are going to advertise your business. First thing you're going to do is describe your industry and describe how there is room for you in that industry. The second thing you're going to do is describe your target customer base. You may have a business that can serve everybody in the world, but you need to have a target customer. These are the folks that you're focusing your advertising and your marketing on, and these are the folks who are going to be your bread and butter. Everybody else can come in and spend money as well, but if these folks are coming in, you're going to be successful. Then you want to talk about your competition. As I said before, we're going to want to see them, locally, regionally, nationally, internationally. We're going to want to see what they do well, and we're going to want to see what your special sauce is, how you're going to be able to compete in the market with them. And collaborating with them is absolutely a way that you can do that. Then you want to talk about your costs and your pricing strategy. So, how much is it going to cost you to actually start your business and to run it? And then based on that, how are you pricing your work or your products? Are you high-end, middle of the road, or are you a value proposition, and why? Then you want to talk about your marketing and sales strategy. So how are you going to get the word out? Is it going to be all social media? Are you going to be going to networking events? Are you the type of business that gets a table at national conferences because you only have 7 or 8 clients a year, but they're $50,000 each? So that's how you're going to take all of that, and that's what's going to identify your competitive edge. Then you're going to want to talk about the structure and organization of your business. This is, are you an LLC? Are you a corporation? Are you working from home? Do you have a retail spot? Are you working, or are you having other folks do it? Do you need to hire employees? You really just want to talk about all of that. You want to talk about your hours. If you don't have a brick and mortar, when are you answering the phone? When are you shipping? Things like that. The other thing that you want to talk about is a contingency plan. So what happens if you get sick and you can't work for 6 weeks or 3 months or something like that? How will your business survive? And we're coming to the end of it, but with the COVID plan, what you really want to think about is, if you're customer facing and one of your employees or customers comes and tells you that they've tested positive, what are you going to do? Doesn't need to be more than a sentence or 2. The last part is your financial plan. And this is going to be different if you're a startup or a existing business. If you're a startup, you're going to want to talk about your startup costs. You're going to want to talk about what you've invested into the business yourself. And you're going to want to talk about your break-even point. You're going to say, okay, I've got an early childhood education center. I can fit, 50 kids in my program. But in year 1, my goal is to have it 60% full, in year 2, 75% full, and then by the end of year 3, have it be 100% full. Things like that are what you want to think about in that business plan. Talk about your break-even point. If you're an existing business, this is where you can show your profit and loss. This is where you can show your quarterly balance sheet, where you can discuss, what's going well and what's not going so well, which is why you need that loan. So that's more real data than proposed data. For any loan from a CDFI and from most banks, you're also going to need 24 or 36 months of cash flow projections. Those can be part of your business plan, or they can be a separate document. And we're going to talk about what that is in just a moment. So here we go. What are they and why do we need them? What they are is they're showing you how much money is coming in, how much money is going out to see if you make a profit. If you're bringing in $5 million a month and it costs you $5.5 million a month to do the work, you do not have a successful business. So this is going to help you identify that. So why do we need them? You need them for a loan. It's a great planning tool. It's also a great review tool, which we call governance. It shows you the difference between the money going in and coming out, and it shows you when you can pay yourself, most importantly. So you will see here on the right-hand side of the page that there's this big, scary spreadsheet. These are our cash flow projections, the ones that we use. Of course, if you've got a different way of doing it, as long as it's broken out monthly, we're probably going to be okay with it. But you want to think about this, it's not as scary as it looks, because number one, it's not going to be 100% accurate. In fact, almost none of the cells are going to be exactly what actually happens, and that's fine. What we want to see is that you're planning that in a worst case scenario, you can make your money, you can pay your employees, you can pay us back, and you can pay yourself. But you don't want to be too bullish. You want to make sure that you're showing that it's a capacity that you can handle, that it's a slow enough growth that they'll believe that you can handle that. You may know you're going to make $2 billion in the first year, but if you say that to a loan committee when you're asking for 35,000, that's going to scare them away. So an example of that is that we had a business that did handmade wedding invitations. They were beautiful. It was a one-person shop, and they charged about $1,000 per wedding. And their projections said there are 10,000 weddings a year in Maryland at $1,000 a pop. I'm going to make $10 million a year. That's never going to happen because people elope. People don't have $1,000 to spend on wedding invitations. A one-person shop is not doing 10,000. So we said, show us you can do 5 or 10 a month. And then, if you're making money there, that's great. And then if you make more, that's just even better. So that's what we want to think about that. You also want to break down your income and your expenses as much as possible. So in your income, let's say you have a restaurant. You may decide to do dine-in, carry-out, and catering. Or if you've got a bar in your restaurant, you may want to break it up between, food, alcohol, and merch or something like that. And the reason why you do that is it helps you figure out how your business is doing as it's running. So if you said, look, we're going to have a business that's going to be 70% food and 30% alcohol, and you look back in 6 months and you see it's been 60% food and 40% alcohol, you can then look at those numbers and say, is the issue that the food isn't doing as well as we thought, or that the alcohol is doing better than we thought? And if the answer is that the alcohol is doing better, then you've got a decision to make. And that decision is, do you invest in the food or do you invest in the thing that's doing really well? And these numbers will help you figure out what you want to do. Same thing with your income. Expenses, I'm sorry. The more you break it out, the more information your cash flows are going to give you. You also want to think about monthly sales. If you're a landscaper, April is going to look different than December, and it should. Also, if you've got a loan somewhere else, put that as an expense, your payments, because we are going to see them. And the last thing that we want to have is a surprise. The more upfront you are with stuff like that, the better chance you have. And we're a nonprofit. We want to make sure that business owners are doing well too. So we want to make sure that you're paying yourself enough to support you and your family, house, clothing, food, fun, all of that good stuff. We want to make sure you've got a quality of life. So before I go into how we do our loans, are there any questions about the business plan and cash flows? Okay, so I'll just go into our loans. So these are general guidelines. There's, of course, flexibility on a few things. So loans range from $5,000 to about $35,000 for startups, and that's anybody who's been around for 2 full years or less. And been around means actually in operations. If you formed an LLC in 2012 and haven't done anything until 2025, that's still a brand new business. If you've been around longer than that, you can go up to a much higher number of 150,000. The term is going to be depending on the size of the loan. 50,000 will be 5 or 6 years. Anything over 100 will be 10 years. Our rates are currently set at 6 to 12%. Generally, they're going out in the 7, 8, 9% range. We do require collateral, but we can be flexible with these. Real estate is always the best, but automobiles, other types of equipment, even other folks, if they're willing to put up their house, we can do that as well. Anybody who owns 20% or more of the business is going to have to personally guarantee the loan. And if you have a business, that's got 10 owners, we're going to want to see 3 or 4, put their name on the line. So when you apply, there's an application fee. It's good to know that all of our assistance, the one-on-one, the webinars, all of that is 100% free, whether or not you apply for a loan with us. But when you do apply, there is this fee of $100 plus $25 for each credit report we pull. That is a TransUnion pull, and we only do a soft pull, and we will be able to get you your full credit report. So if you do get a approval, then there are going to be some closing costs that we take out of the loan proceeds, so you don't need to bring a check to closing. Generally, a $50,000 loan will go out, 48.5, somewhere in there. We're going to take payments every month out of your bank account. It's going to be automatic. There are no penalties for prepayments. You can just talk to us and just do that ahead of time. If your loan has been around for 30 days or more, you can just pay it off right then and not worry about any more of the interest. The other way of that is, though, if you know you can't make a payment, let us know at least a week ahead of time and we'll figure something out. We can defer, we can interest only, we can restructure loans. We report to the personal credit bureaus, so we want to make sure that we're helping your credit go up. As a customer that has a loan, we are going to visit you twice a year, either in person or virtually. We're going to talk to you about resources that we have. We're going to look at your books and let you know about, any troubles that we might see coming down and help mitigate those problems. These are usually very fun visits, pretty quick. It's mostly about bragging about all the good stuff that you're doing. The big question, though, is how are we going to what kind of businesses can get the money and what can they use to spend the money on? And it's actually pretty simple. Almost every small business in our service area, which is the entirety of the Eastern Shore, Cecil County, Harford County, Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and Anne Arundel County. So they're hugging the bay like that. Those are the folks that can get the loans from us. Also, there are a few industries that we can't do, the traditional sin industries, things like 100% alcohol, adult bookstores, 100% tobacco, things like that. We are able to work with tattoo parlors, and we are able to work with both medical and recreational cannabis. However, those folks tend to not need loans anyway. As far as the uses, basically any business use, build out, rent, furniture, equipment, salaries, marketing, all of that. There are a few exceptions. If you are a home-based business, we cannot pay your rent or mortgage or utilities. And if you are in a property investment business, we cannot pay to purchase or rehab properties. We can, build out your office. We can get you your truck. We can get you reusable equipment. So things like, circular saws, yes. Drywall and screws, no. But talk to us. We can figure things out to help you with your business there. We also have what's known as a credit builder loan. These are for a few different folks. It only goes up to $5,000. It's a little bit easier to get. There's no collateral required, much lower costs, but a 9% interest rate. So this are for folks who have no credit or maybe some credit issues in their past. Folks who are trying to take that hobby and turn it into a small business. They don't want to go full time yet, so you just need a little bit of supplies. Or you have an existing business, an emergency comes that can be fixed for $5,000 or less. This is a much quicker turnaround than our larger loans. Everything else is exactly the same. Generally, these are going to be a 2-year term, and generally these do go out at $5,000. That's what most people apply for. It's also important to understand that when you're applying for a loan with us, we generally just do a yes or a no. And the reason for that is if you ask us for $50,000 and you show us that you need $50,000 and we give you 25, we are just setting you up for failure with debt. So actually ask for what you need. I know in the past, folks have said if you need 50, ask for 100. That's no longer the way it's done anymore. So make sure you're asking for exactly what you need, not more in hopes that we'll give you less and that will end up being exactly what you need. So what do you need in order to get a loan from us or another CDFI? Well, number one, a clearly established business idea. That's from a business plan. Talk about your experience. You talk about your cash flow, your collateral, reasonable credit. So what you see here is not a number. We do not have a minimum credit score. We are looking for really what's been going on for the last 12 to 24 months, looking for things like missed payments, especially on credit cards, automobiles, houses, things like that. One thing that's really important is past due amounts. You want to have no or very little past due to get your chances better of getting a yes. There are 2 disqualifiers. Number one, if you had a bankruptcy discharged in the last 24 months, you cannot apply for a loan. And number 2, if you have a state or federal tax debt and do not have a payment plan, then we're unable to close loans. If you're working on setting up a payment plan, we can apply and approve conditionally. We just cannot close until you're on that payment plan. We're also looking for the general economic conditions of this venture. Is this the right time to be opening this kind of business in this space? So it can be about general economic issues, like is the economy doing well or poorly? It can also be if you're opening up a pizza shop on a block where there's 10 other pizza shops, you're going to have to convince us that there's room for you in that market. Then your ability to repay the loan. If the business is not successful, can you hop back into the workforce, support yourself, and make loan payments? So these are the applications for documents for us. They're going to be similar for most loans you apply for. Everything we do is online. Some folks do have paper applications. So the first thing is our intake form. This is our client intake form. It's what allows us to start doing all that work for you for free. It gives us a baseline about where you're at. And then once you fill that in, we're going to contact you within 3 business days. Then there are the loan documents. The first is the application. The application, you're going to talk about, ask for the money, talk about what your business is doing or plans to do, and answer a few questions. On that, there's going to be a lot of attachments. You're going to need the business plan and the cash flows. If you are an existing business, we're going to need 2 years of profit and loss, assuming you've been around for 2 years, 2 years of business federal tax returns, and 3 months of corporate bank statements. For everybody, we are going to need 2 years of personal tax returns, and if business and tax are the same, that's fine. 3 months of personal bank statements, and then also proof that your loan was turned down by another lender. That does not mean you've had to fully apply. If you are a startup and you go to your business banker and they say, we don't do startup loans, that's good enough. Everything else here is optional, but often very helpful. Reference letters. So that can be, school, clergy, or business reference letters. It can come from customers. It can come from bosses. It can come from competitors or collaborators. Anything there is great. We also love letters that say, like, let's say that you're opening a salon and you've had a chair somewhere else. You come with a stack of 30 letters from your clients saying, hey, when they open up their salon over in Baltimore, I'm going to move my business there. That's a pretty easy way to get that loan, but also other things. So do you have a lease? Do you have estimates, contracts, licenses, invoices? Do you have a website, social media, anything that's going to help tell your story? Resumes are often helpful. If you know who your employees are going to be, information on them, all of that kind of stuff is going to help, get you closer to that yes. So what happens next? So we actually accept applications through the second Friday of the month. Now I need to fix that. And then we need all of that information, all of the attachments in by close of business on the second Friday of the month. Even if it's missing one thing, you're going to be moved to the next month. We're also going to need that client intake form. Then you'll be assigned an MCE staff member. We have an office in Baltimore and we have an office in Salisbury. So basically, if you're on the west side of the bridge, you'll talk with us in Baltimore, and on the east side, you'll talk to the folks down in Salisbury. You're going to submit the paperwork. We're going to go back and forth and make sure that it's all good. And the loan committee meets during the 4th week of the month. At that point, they determine if you get the loan, the amount, the rate, and the term. How long is that loan going to last? We then, if it's a yes, issue a commitment letter, and then generally 3 to 4 weeks after that, you will be getting your funds. Sometimes it can be a little longer, sometimes it can be a little shorter. We'll work with you on a one-on-one basis for that. So now we're coming to the end of the presentation, which is, sad, but also fun. But there are a few things that I like to say at the end of all my presentations. As I said before, there's nowhere in the country with better free small business resources than Maryland. And here's a list of a bunch of them, including a few that most folks don't think about. Most county libraries have a business center. They are great, and they're usually staffed with people that are looking to help you out. SBDC, Small Business Development Center, that's part of the SBA. These are going to be folks that are going to be able to give you one-on-one mentoring about your business. They also have the SCORE program, which is the Senior Corps of Retired Executives. They may be able to get you a mentor who is a retired executive in your field to help you out. You also want to think about your local universities. We have great relationships with Salisbury and Morgan State. But even if you aren't an alumnus or you don't work there, they're there to help you out. They often have business centers. They often have classes that are looking to help, doing internships. They can help with marketing and design, all kinds of things like that. And then your local business organizations. And we're going to use that to segue into the next slide. So there are 5 things that I like to do, like to have folks remember when you're applying for a loan. Number 1, keep your day job. It's very difficult to get a loan if you don't have any income coming in. So figure out a way to start your business if you can while keeping your job. Number 2, get an accountant. Even if you are an accountant, you need an accountant. As I said, you're going to be in the weeds as you're growing your business. If you miss a deadline and lose good standing, that can be impactful for your business. Number three, just like that last slide said, ask for help. Talk to all of us. We are all collaborators. We are not competitors. We are not going to be offended if you talk to folks who do the exact same things we do. Number four, keep your money in the bank. So if you're applying for a business loan, they're all going to look at your personal credit. So it's not the time to be buying a car, opening up new credit cards, even buying a house. If you have to, because sometimes things like that happen, then that's a discussion you can have with your banker or with us. Now, going back for the last thing from that last slide, no business is an island. What does that mean? Well, that means that really people go to small businesses because small businesses are part of their community. They feel good supporting a local community member. It just feels good to go into your local mom and pop shop. So give them a reason to. Give the local charity, sponsor a softball team, or get that your banner up at the baseball field. Join your chamber of commerce. Not only is that going to be good for you with the community, but you're probably going to get some great resources from it. Same thing with the Rotary and the Main Streets. When you're giving to local charities, we do live in a pretty politically hot time, so you want to be careful that you're giving to stuff that everybody can get down with. So animals, kids, food banks, veterans, that kind of stuff. It's sort of like you think when you go into a bar, there's always sports on and never news. And the reason why is that if you've got Fox News or MSNBC on, you're turning off potentially half of the people that could walk into your business. And really, unless you're a political business, folks shouldn't know how you're voting because all of their money is going to spend exactly the same. So with that, we do have a few more coming up actually in the next 5 days. Reshaping your relationship with money is going to be really interesting. I am going to actually be attending that, not giving it. And then on the 27th, we're going to be doing a Let's Talk Funding webinar. We've got Jim Peterson from M&T Bank, who is one of the most amazing bankers in the area. Is just such a friend to small businesses. We're going to be talking about how to get loans from our institutions, and then have a big open question and answer segment where you're talking to folks who really know and sometimes help make decisions on the small business funding. So I would recommend attending that as well. That always happens. So this is the last slide. It's got my contact information. I'm also going to type that into the chat. Miri is our Women's Business Center coordinator in Baltimore. She is awesome. And she can help you out with any of the questions about this presentation as well. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions. Just feel free to unmute yourself and ask if you've got anything. Oh, Marlene,
No.
don't feel like you need to raise your hand. You can just start talking.
All right, cheers. Thank you. Yeah, so I actually have a question. So I'm planning on incorporating an LLC.
Great.
And I was just wondering what your take was on virtual addresses, because I read that you shouldn't use your home address in case you do get involved in a legal dispute and the opposing lawyer tries to pierce the corporate veil. But I also know that you're not allowed to use a mailbox. So what do you suggest you do instead when you register? So what kind of business address would you recommend? Like going through an accountancy, or what's your take on that?
Sure. So yeah, this is definitely an issue that's been coming up a lot lately. So you're not the only one thinking about this. So there's a couple of different issues. If you're going to be a retail establishment and you know where that's going to be, use that as your business address. Now, as far as mailboxes go, yeah, you cannot have a PO box, but a lot of co-working spaces offer a mail service. So you would have an address at that co-working space. I know the Cube in Baltimore does that. They accept mail, they accept packages, and you can go in there, during their business hours and, pick up anything. It's not really expensive. I think it's under $50 a month. And then you can use that as your corporate address. It doesn't look like a PO box. I would recommend that you keep it within the same county where your business is located, or where you're doing the majority of your business. What you don't want to do is say, okay, well, Montgomery County isn't eligible, so I'll get a mailbox in Baltimore County, even though all the work I do is in Montgomery County. That is not something that we can do. But as long as it's close by where you are, then that's a really good way to do it.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified. So I am planning on setting up a consultancy. So the idea was to spend at least half the time, say, working from home. So the business address was a bit of a question, but the co-working space is a really good shout. So I'll look
Yeah,
into that. Thank you.
that's and the ones I know about, they've got hundreds and hundreds of businesses that have their address there, and it's perfectly above board. There's nothing shady about it whatsoever.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's very
Yeah.
helpful.
Awesome. Kiana, did I see you had a question?
I'm trying to come off a mute.
There you go.
Am I off mute? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So, my question is, you said something in regards to when you're going through the loan process, any other loans that you may have out would be considered an expense. Um, what if you're in the process of you were getting a certain amount of money from you guys, but you wanted to just keep a credit line open just in case of pop-ups? We
Sure,
have our business
absolutely.
plans, but things come up. Is that going to count against you if you have other lines of credit?
So first of all, having other loans will not count against you.
Okay.
And having a line of credit will also not count against you. So
Okay.
what I would do is, at the time that you're completing your cash flow projections,
Mhm.
if you owe money to that line of credit, put that as, what you owe and, what you plan on paying on that monthly. So, let's say you real easy, you owe $1,000, you're going to pay $100 a month for 10 months on it. Assuming you found the no interest loan, which doesn't exist, but I'm bad at math, don't want to do weird numbers. So you'd show for the first 10 months that you're paying $100 a month to that loan. And then when that stops, we'll know that means that loan's paid off.
Okay, got you.
Yep. Oh, gentleman with the Samsung, I saw you're unmuted.
Yes, I have a question. How do I speak to someone? I'm in Salisbury, so I'd like to speak to someone in your office, face to face. How do I get an appointment?
Sure, absolutely. So I think the best thing to do from the webinar is send me an email.
Okay.
I'll give you a phone call and then I'll get you to the right person.
Thank you
Awesome.
very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another one.
Sure.
So I'm in Baltimore. So is there a contact person here that we can reach out to?
That's me. I'm on Calvert Street.
Oh, you're on Calvert Street. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Me and
Okay.
Miri are both in Baltimore.
Okay, wonderful.
At the Salisbury office, is there anyone that can help you decipher whether it should be a business like an LLC or if it should start as a nonprofit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can give you advice. Absolutely. If you contact the office down there, there's a couple of ways actually you can do that. If you go to our website on the top right-hand corner, there's a box that says "Get Started Here." You can fill out the client intake, and somebody will contact you right away. You can also email info@marylandcapital.org. That goes to a general email box. Or you can email me and I can get you in, talk with you. I might have the advice that you need, or I can get you in touch with the right person. I actually do have a lot of experience with nonprofits, and I'm happy to talk to folks on the shore.
Okay, thank you.
So, all right, anybody else?
Sorry,
Okay,
I do
well,
have a
awesome.
second question.
Sure,
Oh,
absolutely.
sorry.
Well, I've got nothing going on. We can talk all day. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Who do I talk to about structuring my business? Like if I'm an LLC, should I be the owner or should I be an employee, or who can I talk to about the various ways of structuring?
Sure. So that's going to be very dependent on your specific business. Where's your business located?
At Prince George's County.
Okay, so yeah, even though we don't do loans in PG, contact me and we can talk about that. And then if you do need a loan, we can get you in touch with a partner who does exactly what we do there.
Okay, thank
I
you
went to
so much.
Central. I'm a PJ kid, so I love helping out PG people.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's see.
I
Alrighty.
had one more question before I
Awesome.
let you guys go. So I did see on the website that because of the government shutdown, that this could affect applications of sort. Is that particular with the grants, especially for minority grants, or is there a plan in place to kind of keep things going forward if you were looking to start your business at the end of the year or the beginning of the year?
Sure. So grants we don't have, and I don't
I'm
know
sorry,
about
not
any at all.
grants, not
But
grants.
loans? Okay,
Funding.
loans. Yeah,
Funding.
absolutely. Yeah. So I'm trying to think the best way to answer this. I think that this is probably a one-on-one conversation.
Okay.
Because you don't want to. Yeah, so definitely just email me. We'll be able to talk this week.
Okay.
And get all that done. The other thing is for everybody with the cash flow projections, I am happy to do a one-on-one Zoom with you. It takes about a half hour to 45 minutes to do 2 years of projections. And then that's, a good starting place, either for looking for a loan or just sort of having that document for yourself. We just, set up a Zoom. I type right in it as I ask you questions and then email it over to you. And of course, that's free.
Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Any other questions? Well, I'd like to thank you all not only for attending, but also for being one of the very first groups that actually had a lot of questions. So I appreciate that. It shows that you all have been listening, that you're dedicated to your small businesses. I hope I see you either in person, on Zoom, or at another one of these webinars. I also do a business plans and cash flow webinar, and that Let's Talk Funding. We have a YouTube channel where this video will be along with all of our other webinars that are already up there. So we just look forward to working with you and helping you start your small businesses and enjoying these last 3 minutes of your lunch hour. So have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Nick. This was very helpful. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.